Welcome back, fellow tribe members, haters, lovers, friends, strangers, and cannabis enthusiasts listening to this podcast. Welcome back. This is part 2 of episode 1, season 1 of Mr. Zeppo's Cannabis Talk. If you have a question about cannabis, submit it. If you'd like to call into the show, contact me and we'll set up an interview time. All right. I humbly thank you for listening. For those of you who are hardcore fans from before, because there are a couple of you who've been really actually listening to this stuff on Sprecher and on YouTube, I'm impressed. Thank you so much. Kudos to you for coming back and checking back in. I hope you're not shocked and surprised by the fact that I smoke pot. Let me be really honest with you guys, as an audience, present and or future audience members. I've been really freaked out about saying this on the record and putting it out there on the internet. And it's funny because, I've got, paranoid reasons for being paranoid, and I've got legit reasons for being paranoid. Because there'll be haters out there that hate pot and that intellectually might be following along and agreeing with something, and then boom, as soon as you introduce that notion that you happen to also partake in cannabis, then you're categorically denied intellectual plausibility by those folks. And it's been a struggle in my personal life. I won't dwell on that in terms of talking about it too much on the show. I'm very grateful, and every day I wake up to say a prayer of gratitude that my father has come to begrudgingly accept that cannabis is a part of my life. I want to reassure people that I do not feel like it is an addiction. I categorically reject the notion that it is a gateway drug to other drugs. When I don't want to smoke pot, I don't want to smoke pot, and that's that, and it doesn't feel weird, and I don't go through withdrawals. I love smoking pot. I don't want to be crass or rude or offensive, but I love smoking pot almost as much, if not slightly more, than I enjoy doing naughty things with my life partner. Don't currently have one, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's at that level, and that's not crazy. And some people will be like, "You're fucking crazy, man," and women have been offended at that statement, which is sad and crazy. That doesn't mean that I have more love for a state of mind or a chemical process than I have for my human partner. That's not true. I just mean that in terms of, like, it's pleasant, it's good, I enjoy doing it, and my reasons for saying no to it are extremely low and well understood. That's what I mean. That's where I'm trying to put it. You know what I mean? Like, when I'm with a woman, when I'm with a life partner, and it's good, and she becomes a woman I cannot say no to. So very rarely do I say no to the women that I date, except for when it's required by intellectual necessity or, like moral lines being drawn, and that's pretty, clear. So, and especially sex. Like, my girlfriend wants to have sex. Like, the video game is not more important. Now, I'm not trying to be crass. I'm trying to be a little bit funny. I'm also trying to point out a thing I've observed. There are a lot of men out there that will turn down intimate sexual pleasurings with their girlfriend / life partner if fucking World of Warcraft is being played. I, ethically, morally, spiritually, intellectually, bodily, like physically, carnally, and did I say intellectually yet? Cannot agree with that position. I cannot. I'm that kind of man. And it's my private business, and I'm not trying to brag about it, but I can't. No video game, no movie, no magazine, no telephone conversation is more important than the need for deep. And I'm also not, I'm not a taker, I'm a giver of pleasure. I'm a person who understands myself really well, and very honestly, very clearly, and I don't use sex for anything other than the joyous celebration of sex and the love between the person that I'm with and myself, and vice versa. Even if it's something that's slated to not be long term, or that's something two consenting adults can do, I still always bring a lot of love to it, not to belittle the notion of. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with cannabis. My point is, I have a relationship with this plant that is as deep as that kind of thing. It's just also in a completely different category. Should not be confused or compared. Let's refocus on that. Smoking cannabis is fun. Duh. California, not a big new idea. There's a great meme floating around that says, I don't smoke cannabis to escape my reality. I smoke cannabis to enjoy my reality more fully and more deeply. I've had conversations with people where they think that I'm just pro-cannabis because I'm an addict, and it takes them a bit to sort of hear me on the following. It's a continuance of the thought we were on in part one. Right? We get it. Alcohol is a toxic substance. Drinking alcohol is equivalent to drinking gasoline. Gasoline is just more abrupt, sharp, and detrimental and immediate in its toxic, terrible, destroy your body effects. Okay? And I don't mean to demean it, but also, beyond that, the industry behind it is perversely corrupt and evil and wrong. As evil and wrong as the horrible food industries that the food industries have become, where they're not really feeding us food anymore, they're feeding us a food-like substance, right? We shouldn't be profiteering on selling ourselves or each other things that we know will kill each other. And no one's ever died from smoking pot. In fact, people have been healed because they smoke pot, and that's just, you can't argue that anymore. You can just say that you begrudgingly disagree to accept that as something that should be real, but it's real. And here's why I think it's real. And here's how I think it works. And why I think it is it's different than drinking alcohol. In cannabis culture, there's a phrase or a term, it's a little bit dismissive, but it's also with love, called the 1HQ, or the one-hit quitter. When someone first is introduced to cannabis, it can be overwhelming. The effects of it can be overwhelming. Now, I think there's different mechanisms involved. Alcohol and other drugs that are really damaging on the body in a categorically undeniable way. Like, if you smoke meth for too long, your body looks like shit. Just Google before and after pictures of people on meth. I know that there's a lot of punny, jokey, fakey memes of Google before and after smoking pot. And there's a lot of funny, clever memes, and it's usually involving people getting fat because they ate too much because they got the munchies. I don't get the munchies anymore. That does happen. You get the munchies. I'm walking you through my theory about how the body relates to us. If you remember from part one, I postulated the radical crazy notion that maybe, just maybe, at some point in some forgotten period of history, which we don't account for in any way, shape, or form today, we lived in a society, in a culture, we were striving towards enlightenment through meditation that was enhanced and empowered by really healthy eating and a use of some plants, an engagement in the consumption of plants in what might be considered a mind-altering way. I said in part one that I think cannabis is one of a trifecta of sacred, healing, and spiritually liberating plants. And by the way, it's actually hitting live in my real time, almost 420 now. So if it happens to be around 420 in your time listening to this, cheers, mate. And I'm not the first to say this. Like I'm saying, what's the name? That guy, I can't remember, and others have said it before. Because Earth and the universe is not a place, it is a living entity, and everything that's alive, that's within it, is a living entity within a living entity. It's like if, let's say, if you could imagine the tree analogy, right? About, that's where we are spiritually. We're leaves arguing about the existence of the roots of the tree. Imagine if those leaves of those trees would also debate whether or not inhaling carbon monoxide and all the other toxins they have to inhale is a good thing or it's a drug. Well, obviously there'd be some ingredients in the air that you could argue that might be really bad for them, and it might actually be toxic and bad, right? But there's probably other ingredients in it that they're supposed to breathe in, like the oxygen, and I mean, not the oxygen, the carbon monoxide and the carbon dioxide and all of the things that we exhale that they inhale. Same deal. There are foods that are good for us to eat. And this steps back to a bigger thesis of mine that probably is better suited in Daily Zencast. But I'll talk about it now because it's something that occurred to me while I was really, really high one day. I used to live in Ventura, and Ventura is sort of a progressive town. It's, like north of the Hollywood sign. In California, there's an interesting divide, and I noticed this a long time ago, in the 90s. North of the Hollywood signs, where all the hippies hang out. South of the Hollywood sign, the rest of the state is mix of conservatives, progressives, and people who just don't give a fuck and want to be famous. And another random mix of people who just want to live by the beach and don't give a fuck about anybody else's opinions about anything. They just want to live by the beach. Okay? That's obviously changed a bit and softened up and whatever. But when I moved to Ventura for random reasons at the urging of a coworker and a friend, I discovered there was a lot of hippie people up there, a lot of vegetarians up there, and a lot of cannabis enthusiasts up there a long time ago. And I eventually, by the way, randomly, without planning it or without any kind of cannabis-related intent, ended up moving to San Francisco and living there for a brief spell, where I was just surrounded by cannabis. You couldn't, in parts of that city, you couldn't walk 10 feet without identifying someone who blatantly self-identified as a cannabis enthusiast by wearing something with a cannabis-related brand label, way ahead of the curve, right? That's been around since the 70s up there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's sort of, that's sort of stereotypically true of California. Where was I going with all that? Oh yeah, I lived up there, and I used to smoke pot just to smoke pot. And I had this realization one day, really, really, really high. And it was purely at the intellectual academic level. As if I'd been researching some foreign, exotic culture's belief systems, and some things had been hazy and missing full explanations that kind of hard to wrap your brain around. And I'd, let it simmer, and then finally my brain went, aha, eureka. I get it. Everything in the universe is related to spirit. Everything in the universe is being brought into being by spirit, including alcohol, including the drugs, including the horrible things, including the murderers and the rapists. And I hate to say it because that's really traumatic for people who've been murdered or raped. And I'm sorry. I don't mean to push that button for anybody. But it's true. And like I was saying before in some other moment, the good and the bad, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark are not enemies out to destroy each other. They are twins, conjoined from birth at the very core of their being, that are exploring the dynamics of going as far out to the extreme of the opposites of each other and coming back home. And that they are inseparable from each other, because if you separate light from dark, they would completely lose significance and meaning. And life is not about subscribing to a belief system about why good and evil have to have this tango, this dance, this relationship, this drama, but rather a sort of exercise, training, or classroom that's about a really hardcore, fundamental question that divides you, that determines determines for you whether you're ascending upwards towards the ascension spiral path, and achieving, making achievements and learning lessons and discovering insights, and seeing yourself, perceiving yourself and the universe around you more clearly. Because that path, what it does is it heals you and strips toxic ideas away from you. cannabis is here to help us with that. Why do I think that? Not because anybody told me. Although I'm not the only person out there thinking that. I thought about earlier, there's stuff that we need to talk about. I should look up and give some shout outs or reference. And one is that there's a lot of pro-cannabis movements out there. And now is the time. I think that in Trumptopia, in Good Morning Trumptopia, I argue about whether or not we're supposed to tear down the system, step away from the system, walk away from it, ignore it, or try to fix it from within, right? I think the most intelligent approach is a two-pronged approach. Try to get involved and engage, because it is the system that functions now and gets things done. Gay marriage is now legal at the federal level. Cannabis is legal recreationally at several state levels, and I think it's following the same tidal wave pattern. Given the number of there's the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, as featured by Wikipedia. This is just Google. I typed in names of pro-cannabis movement organizations to be overly nerdy and specific in my language. Buffalo Cannabis Movement on Wikipedia. Pro-legalization groups prepare for marijuana measures in 2016. 10 most influential legalization groups. Okay, so that's happening. And if you're already on board, if you're already a member of the tribe, then get out there and get educated and get involved. Don't use cannabis in that silly, limited, because I assure you, if I'm older than you, then I have more experience than you with it, and I have a lot more relatable data conveyed to me by others who have long time relationship with it, and the benefits only increase once you open your mind and rediscover how you can relate to it. And you start having a very appropriate, respect-based, safety-minded and law-abiding relationship with it. You can have the most fun you can have in your mind, and also deep, profound comprehension of things and aha moments that are not about just blindly accepting something someone said. And those of you who are already there with it, obviously part of the movement that wants to make it legal at the federal level. Some of you are enthusiasts about it, but haven't made that click turnover moment. And I'm just here to encourage you at it. I've had too many conversations, I've seen too much, I've experienced too much healing. The most powerful people in American marijuana industry, fortune.com. That's the thing I want to read and come back to. Also, get educated, like I was saying before. Get educated. So, Prop 64 text. I've looked that up. I've downloaded that before, but having not seen what updates might be around it, might have happened since the election, that's something I'm going to look into, and we're going to talk about in future episodes. Another thing I want to highlight for future episodes we're going to talk about on Cannabis Talk is that there exists now at least one, maybe more. I think I'm seeing evidence of more now, live, on radio, on the air. One cannabis church, for sure, the first church of cannabis. It's a Wikipedia entry, but I know I've come across them before and I've been to their actual website. I exchanged emails with them before, and they have a franchise package. It's just a little bit outside my reach economically, but the moment I get a starter seed congregation going and a few donations rolling, I'm thinking about starting a church of cannabis, because that is what freedom of religion means in America. That's not what freedom of religion means in Trumptopia, but that's what freedom of religion meant in America. Past tense. I correct myself. And yeah, so you're missing a huge opportunity if you're just smoking it to get crunk and pass out. Although that's not a horrible way. It's a much healthier way to party than to get drunk and pass out and puke your brains out. Because if you just partied with cannabis your whole life and got a little, you got some head change and whatever, and that was your partying substance, and that's all you ever did with it, and you never did yoga with it, and you never meditated with it, and you never explored tantric sex with your life partner with it, and you never, ate it for this nutritional value, you're probably not going to die from that choice. You're not. Unless you're also drinking really heavily and smoking cigarettes really heavily, which I am here to bear witness testimony to. It's a hard struggle. I was a sucker for the profiteering industries of alcohol and cigarettes, and I'm committed on my step, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back journey of fully abdicating cigarettes and alcohol. And I bring that out as full disclosure because I don't want any more trouble with the law. I want cannabis and hemp also. Let's not forget about hemp and all of its awesome fun facts that are true, which you cannot eat or smoke, but you can make a bunch of cool shit, including, anything and everything, any kind of product or substance that could be rendered out of oil pulled out of the ground. That's why marijuana was made legal back in the golden days of the oil rush. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more, say no more. But yeah, and to come full circle, if you go and watch the original Fever, what's it called? Reefer Madness. Like, oh yeah, wow. That is a bunch of trumped up bullshit. And then, when you smoke weed and your body gets used to the euphoria, I've already covered what happens when you drink alcohol, right? When you smoke cannabis, and when you eat either derivative products made out of cannabis oil, or the heat-activated plant itself by making it a soup first, recipes coming soon in future episodes. All you need is a nice like a strong enough food processor blender that does, whole fruit juicing. Or blending. If you heat activate it, you blend it hard enough so it gets hot. If you've got a blender that makes soup, which there are, right? I'm not crazy. It's not an imaginary thing. Then yes, and you drink that, you will get high. But you will also get all the nutrition. And there's a time in which your body goes, oh my God, thank you for returning that very, very long missed nutritional content to our regular diet. My comfort zone with consuming it either smoked or your body will tell you this, not some legislative body, not some religious authority. Your body will tell you, it will tell you, hey mind, hey brain, hey whatever that sentence monkey thing is that makes all the choices and determines and explains it to other body sacks, other meat puppets. Here's when I think I should smoke pot. It's healthy. Your ego will tell you how to smoke pot in an unhealthy way, because that is what ego is for. Thus, cannabis is a really great ally when consumed in conjunction with in close time proximity to meditation. It's a little rough on the vocal cords, I'll tell you that. So it's hard to do a podcast about smoking pot and smoke pot because then your vocal cords get all beat up. I haven't hit the bong that hard. Ooh, fun fact about the bong, which I will not photograph because I know that's illegal. I think I am allowed to talk about it though. I'm a non-materialist. I don't like objects. I don't like accruing big attachments to objects. I also have pack rat compulsions because we all do. Because there was a time in our development that it was a survival skill to be a pack rat. Because you never know when something that you could afford to hang on to and either carry with or store where you might come into use. And that might determine life or death. That tool, that interesting object that you can barter or trade with some asshole that really, really, really wants to take your food. But maybe hey, this object is valuable, take it, go take it somewhere else and make lots of food for it. Right? Anyways, if you don't get caught up in the misleading misdirection of your ego, that's why I make the clarifying statement about intent. And there's nothing wrong with partying with it, just like I formally don't believe there's anything wrong with drinking alcohol. But if alcohol is on a team, it's on ego's team. And ego is not your amigo, my friends. You don't need to be a Buddhist. to realize that. And you can be a Christian and come to realize that. Not to totally intermix all the topics, but there is pretty good evidence in the Bible that Jesus was probably a meditator. I'll just leave that one dangling for people who are curious, or people who've got the energy to go dig that up for themselves. There's even a wonderfully thoughtful, well-balanced documentary called Was Jesus in India? Or Jesus in India. I don't remember if it was a question mark or not a question mark. It might have been really short or a little bit longer, but anyway, go check it out. And I'll talk ramble about it at another time, especially if I ever get back around to seeing that documentary. While yes, I have seen times in my life when, wow, smoking cannabis and doing that other thing could be dangerous. I'm adamantly against smoking cannabis in the car, especially for the driver. It's way too easy to get too distracted and especially in the first 4 minutes, 20 seconds. No, that's a joke. But in the first 10, 15 minutes of consumption is when you're most euphoric and your body's experiencing the most intense, vivid sort of mind and body effects. And those effects are happening because, in my humble opinion, in my theory, your body's accepting these nutritional ingredients that you have a system for using, and it's sort of putting your sensory apparatus into a curious and very interesting overdrive place. And just like you shouldn't drink alcohol and drive your car, which tragically it's very easy to get seduced into doing by your ego and by the way our society is set up. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why. Control and profiteering and vilification and dividing lines. Starting to see the pattern there, folks. But with cannabis, there's sort of like a natural health inclination to be like, I don't need to smoke this until I fall over. I need to smoke this until I feel this level of really good and respect that, and then meditate. It's worth checking out. The personal feeling, the personal experience of the kind of clarity you can get of experiencing the processes inside your mind in a way that is just, you're not readily going to jump at to doing in a perfectly square. Now, mind you, the same can be said about being perfectly sober. In fact, I'm sure I will in future episodes, but I'll touch on this now. I think that it's important and conscientious and correct and, dare I say, righteous. If we think of cannabis as a spiritual thing, then it can't be abused, right? So how do you make sure you don't abuse it? Moderation is one thing. I've got an interesting advancement of a moderation technique. I think that what's great for the body, think about paleo diet, and think about the real life practical terms about the way we used to eat back when we were hunter-gatherers and were on the verge of survival. There were days we didn't eat. Guess what? It's probably healthier for you. I know that it sucks because we're conditioned with 3 meals a day. We love our little snack and our dessert stuff. But in truth, evolutionarily speaking, I kind of buy that logic more than creationism. But then again, my evolutionarily speaking includes God as the progenitor of all things. Anyways, currently now, and not just in the past. So evolutionarily speaking, we spent probably, let's say, 255% more time living on the verge of not quite having enough food and always having to be putting a lot of effort into hunting and gathering than we do like this, coddled and always having a box full of dead stuff shoved on our face whenever we want. So we were fitter, healthier. I mean, if you look at paleo, and why do we go to the gym? To simulate hard work. I mean, in fact, we quite honestly acknowledge that working out is hard work. But we didn't have gyms back in the day. So how were fit people super fit and healthy? Because they must have been standing around being fit and healthy. They did hard work, like climbed up mountains to find places where rare berries and herbs that only grow under certain conditions. You get it? They ran long distances to find a place where the river crossed the mud. the fish, the special fish. What's my point? There's a lot of things that we used to do as individuals that we don't do anymore, that were probably really good for us and really healthy for us. And that even back in the olden times, we found ways to sort of simulate them. Yoga, I would argue to you, is one of the earliest proto-gym, proto-exercises that is not just about the body, but it is very good for the body. It helps keep the body toned and fit and ready to do even more vigorous physical work than just yoga. I mean, that's self-evident if you just look at a yoga body person. If you look at someone who does yoga and does not go to the gym to lift weights, they look like they already go to the gym and lift weights or are ready to throw down and go to the gym and lift weights, drop of a hat. Most of them, on average. There's also people who do yoga who don't look like that, but also could beat the shit out of you or could lift you, There's all kinds of everybody's body. I'm not trying to judge or make a line of distinction of good bodies versus bad bodies. I'm trying to point out that yoga, in and of itself, is a means to facilitate another practice. And it's bifurcated, it's bifold, it's got two, it's polemic. It's there to prepare you to do other kinds of physical exercise, and it's there to prepare you to do other kinds of spiritual exercise. So yoga is a great way to prepare to do meditation. And meditation is a great way to prepare to yoga. Yin yang goes round and round. I think that we can, as a society, to find a healthy way to incorporate cannabis, not just as an alternative to alcohol. There's emergent studies shows that it's a good way to help facilitate addicts of alcohol and other crazy or manufactured hardcore drugs to overcome their addiction. Something to be explored deeper with a little bit more research on my part, and a little bit more research on your guys' part at a later episode. But I assure you that the propaganda is propaganda, and that there's a lot we have yet to fully come to understand about the body and its relationship to the substances that this plant provides for us. And there are, like I was saying, I teased out earlier, there are other ones. I think there's a trifecta of 3 big ones. I think that and the fungus commonly known as magic mushrooms, and it's more of a plant combo. It's more of a process because it's the only thing that it requires minimal sort of caveman level processing, and there's a very good reason for it. Ayahuasca. I haven't done that. I haven't gone there. I've been there. I've never consumed it. Never bought it. I even avoid looking it up because it's one of the DMT is the most illegal substance on the planet, which I think is ridiculous. I think we should be doing scientific research on DMT, not just because that crazy hippie from the 70s said so, not just because a lot of crazy hippies from the 70s said so, not because I want to smoke it and party drug with it, but because I think there's something to the traditional, ancient, aboriginal, indigenous, medicinal, shamanic, spiritual, religious ceremony of ingesting ayahuasca and going vision questing. I think we can achieve lots of evidences of the kind of big, full, deep thing that you can get through that sort of ceremony with much chiller, much more laid back, much less intense ceremonies. And I think that there's a science there, as others before me have said, as ancient mystics have said. In fact, there's evidence in many religions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Although not so much in Islam, sorry. I retract that statement. But in Sufism, which is sort of related cousin offshoot of Islam, I think. I could be wrong. Don't sue me. But I know for a fact that in Judaism, ancient, early rabbis consumed plants and concoctions that could be considered libations or intoxicants or mind-altering substances in the aid of their meditation and their prayers. Which connects back to what I was talking about in the Almost Daily Zen episode. Prayer works whether you're sober or not. And I can confirm for you that from personal experience, I know that drinking alcohol and meditation, mutually exclusive. You can have, there's a window of, like, I've had 2-3 drinks tops, where your mind can wax philosophical and romantical for a hot minute. Any more drinks than that, and you just kind of get stupid and brutish and primordial and kind of lizard brainy and sort of like food, pleasure, TV, movie, sex, or sleep. And that's just a hardcore fact. Anybody that likes drinking enough to drinking, enough to know the difference between drinking 1 drink and drinking 3 drinks and drinking 17 drinks, and has had enough experience with that, knows what I'm talking about. And I strongly encourage everyone that has an active drinking habit to even just ceremoniously and occasionally do what I do with cannabis, which is take a vacation. I was building up to that, I got sidetracked. Moderation, one way of expressing moderation is to take breaks and purge. Just like, what are nutritional dietary food cleanses and purges about? Ask yourself that. We are sold toxic shit to eat. We are. McDonald's, God bless you, you're trying to improve your image, trying to look better. So are many other brands out there, and I'm not trying to disparage any of the human individuals who work at those places. You gotta work what you gotta work. The system's abusive, and there's very little great work opportunity. But overall, they feed us shit, dude. And you know it's true. You palpably, physically comprehend at a word place that there's no words. You know what I mean? At a place behind the words, deeper than the words. More inside your phenomenological experience than your ego brain making words. That when you eat really good, clean, and healthy, and yes, oh my God, dare I even say vegetarian, you feel better. You feel better from soup to nuts. From sphincter to fucking crown chakra. Sorry, root chakra. Okay? I call it sphincter because, literally from pooping, feels better, and it's true. And that's why we have all these crazy diet purge trends. Because we eat like shit, but it tastes good, right? But we feel bad. And then we purge and diet so that we can try to approximate feeling better. But even those are cockamamie half the time because they're profiteering on us. So they're not giving us really great nutrition. They're giving us sort of the window dressing of really great nutrition. Truth of the matter is, like Brad Pitt says to what's-his-nuts, Edward Norton in Fight Club, we were all supposed to be farmers. We're all supposed to be like farmers, hunter-gatherers. They work really hard. That's why we're fit. And enjoy some hobbyist physical activity, hiking, camping, and exercising, and working out and meditating. That's utopia. We can get there, folks. We can get there. And guess what? Cannabis probably can help. Now, kids, don't smoke till you're old enough to fucking smoke. And don't give me some bullshit whiny blah, 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 blah. It's just hardcore facts. While generally speaking, cannabis is non-dangerous to you at a lethal level when you're a fully formed adult, the honest to God truth is the brain is in a very sensitive, delicate, formative development process all the way through and past most of puberty. Okay? If you're under the age of, I want to say 21, just to round up and be fair and make it at an equal footing, equal but different than alcohol. That's a safe measure too, by the way. Like, I respect the alcohol industry. I don't want to abolition it. That's crazy talk. And I'm also not so radically extreme that I want to encourage people to legalize for recreational crack. Like, we don't need that. That's crazy talk. It's way too dangerous. Although, in countries where they've decriminalized all recreational drugs and provide healthcare around it, guess what? Drug use has gone down because people have realized, the really bad drugs aren't very good escape. And the good drugs are kind of good for you, and they help you realize the really bad drugs are bad for you. Cannabis ain't a drug, folks. Neither is mushrooms. Neither is ayahuasca, I don't believe. And there's very few others. There's maybe 1 or 2 others. But I got about 4 minutes and change left. So to honor the last 420 of 420 time, I hope you enjoy my rambles. I hope that they're informative and bizarrely somehow kind of humorous. And I hope I don't sound like an idiot. I know, hey, by the way, this is something that should be like a disclosure thing for all of my shows, all of my segments. I understand that anything that comes out of my mouth actually could be totally wrong. And say it again for the record, in case I ever get some bullshit down the road. Even the things I'm really big hardcore about, like cannabis, like the universe being illusion, like we can heal the political system from the inside if we start healing ourselves as a species from the inside. Like, I believe that Trump is a spiritual reflection of, as Cornel West put it, the term that he actually said, I kept forgetting earlier when I was mentioning in another segment, spiritual vacuity of America. I think it's not the first time. He's not the first person. Someone else said this theory a long time ago. As a species, the people that we raise to control, we put into position of power over us, represent both the good and the bad. You know, someone on Facebook earlier today, when I was getting up and doing my morning ritual, someone posted, in one word, who do you think killed JFK? And everyone had some really interesting answers, and I put weed. Because we blame society, but we are society. And if you do your research, you come to realize that the mystic, transcendental, whatever you want to call it, postulation or theory that if the divine entity is physically manifesting the cellular structure of everything and is the center of consciousness behind everyone, then we accept that, and it's true and it's real, and it can be verified physically, phenomenologically, then why aren't we doing it? I'm not the first person, not the last person to put those. But I get it. I could be totally wrong. I really could. You know why I'm willing to say that, folks? Because although I still have an ego, it's been humbled and deflated. And I'm not saying that to be sarcastic or to be petty or to be whatever the fuck, a charlotte. I really do feel like I've gone through enough bullshit, enough pain, enough transformation in my life to tell you that I mean what I say to you sincerely. Even if I've got bad conversation habits and my tone sounds weird or aggressive or radical or whatever. I'm not a radical and I'm not violent. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to go check it out for yourself. And I don't want you to go start smoking pot if you don't smoke pot and you don't want to smoke pot. Just like I don't think you should start drinking alcohol if you don't drink alcohol. Just don't do it. Especially if you're underage. But even if you're 21, and if you're 21 and you've never drank, don't. If you've never felt the pull, the drug, the draw, and you've never been pushed to it by friends, avoid it. Why? Because, categorically, super healthier for you. Drinking, totally fine. Your body's going to pay the bill later. Trust me, I personally know. Your wallet's going to pay the bill later, too. Trust me, I personally know. But if you are of legal age and your state allows it, get your medical license, comply, get educated, get organized, get involved. Don't overdo it. Don't do it the wrong way. Don't make a bad example of yourself. Don't be one of those stoners that makes us all look like bad, stupid-laden stoners and give us a bad name. Because, that happens. A good thing can be used the wrong way. And more importantly, as is the overall theme of all my things, meditate with it. And for all you lovers out there, make love with it. Thank you for listening, folks. Om Shani Metta Shanti Om Namaste. May peace, love, and grooviness be with you. If you've got questions, send me an email, post on my Facebook, post on my Instagram. If you are in Southern California, want to come over, kick it for a session of this podcast, and you are a cannabis card holder, and you're not a cop out to fucking ruin my life,